I had the ADD thing, like the best commercial I ever saw was the one where it was like showed this lady and she's like trying to pay attention in a meeting and they're like, do you feel like you try to concentrate and it's like somebody's just flipping the channel on the TV like that you're
Hmm.
watching and it just keeps changing and you have no control over it? I was like,
Yep.
yes, that
Yep.
is exactly it. And that actually got cleared up. By the way, this is not medical advice. the
Disclaimer.
Yeah,
We're
disclaimer,
not
right? Like,
doctors. We
yeah,
don't
I'm
play
not a
ones on the
doctor,
internet.
but what I found was that was affecting me was my diet. So when I took wheat and dairy out of my diet, the ADD, like it's still there sometimes. It kind of like creeps in, but it's not like. But when I cleaned up my diet, all that went from like 100%, sometimes like 120%
Hmm.
to like 5. There's like days where I'm like, I can feel my brain starting to kind of like get real fast and I start getting anxious too. So
Hmm.
anxiety was also a part of that through my 20s because I didn't know and it got worse. Like I think my allergies got worse. Like up until my 20s, I was fine. Actually, it was up until like my early to mid 20s, I was fine. And then from about mid to late 20s, like I emotionally was all over the place because the my body, the way it was coming down to the way that my body was reacting to the food that it didn't like in my system and it's attacking itself. I've got an autoimmune condition.
So do I.
Yeah, so like I'd eat bread, I'd get depressed. I'd go full guns ADD like all over the place with depression. So that I mean that's a special thing on its own.
Yeah.
And then um and then I just feel like shit. Like the reason I got diagnosed with the gluten thing was because I went to my doctor and I said, I woke up this morning and I feel like I've been out all night, haven't slept, and been drinking and partying. And I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night and
Yeah.
I feel like I've
Yeah.
been hit by a truck. Like there's something wrong, you know? And then they ran tests and they were like, oh yeah, you're allergic to gluten, dairy. And I was like, what do I do? And they were like, well, just avoid that stuff. Like even in whatever 2008, that's when I got diagnosed. There was no like guidelines. It was just like stop eating it. Well, can I
Yeah.
ever eat it again? No. Okay. Well, that sucks. Bread I wasn't so bothered by. Cheese, that really bummed me out. Although the vegan cheeses are much better than they were 10 years ago by a mile.
Curious, is anything like beer or like anything fermented, does that bother you?
Well, I don't drink beer because that has gluten. Um,
Huh.
but I can have what is that stuff? Uh, Kombucha. Like I can have a hard kombucha, which is a fermented type thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem to bother me at all.
The reason why I ask is because a lot of what you're saying like kind of translates with histamines, which is my problem. I have a thing called mast cell activation syndrome. So like basically it's like autoimmune loop, and like the problem is that it releases quite a lot of histamines, and then if I eat anything with histamines, there's like too much, and it kind of overflows. I thought I had allergies for so long, but I would go to ENTs and they would be like, "We did all the tests. Like you're not allergic to anything that we can test. We don't know what it is."
Mm.
Turns out I wasn't actually allergic per se. It was actually just the mast cell activation. But dude, it's fucking insane how many entrepreneurs that I know that deal with some sort of mental health issue, like say ADHD, anxiety, whatever, and they have autoimmune conditions.
Mm.
It's nuts. It's so prevalent. I'll send you some info offline, but like, yeah, it's crazy. What's helped you the most? Other than just getting off that stuff, like was it you stopped and then you're cool, or was there other effects?
It took time actually, and partially it was because I didn't want to give up the stuff. So like I'd be good for a week, and then I'd be like, I can have some bread. It's not going to be so bad. And then I'm super hyperactive, anxious. I could at least detach enough from myself to be like, this isn't good, you know.
Hmm.
And then as I got older, the wheat started causing depression, and it was weird because it's like everything's fine. I'm not upset about anything. I'm not in conflict with anybody. And I'd accidentally get something because I didn't pay attention to the fact that they used wheat as a binding agent in an ingredient, right? So it wasn't even obvious that it was wheat. It just somebody used it
Yeah,
for
yeah.
some reason. And I was too lax. I didn't read the ingredients, which I have to read the ingredients of everything now.
Yeah.
I'd eat something and then like I'd just start getting depressed. Like,
Mm.
and I'm like mentally going, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. But I would feel like that heavy, sad, wet blanket feeling of depression come over me. So I did some research on it. It appears what's causing it is the inflammation is going up into the brain, causing inflammation in the brain, and the brain's starting to
Hmm.
go, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a side effect of the autoimmune system fighting against the glutens. Whereas like with dairy, I can't do casein, but I'm not lactose intolerant. But casein
Mm.
is, or casein or however it's pronounced, is the stuff. It's the protein that makes cheese gooey. I can't eat that. I haven't tried to do whey because it's still like a milk protein, so I kind of avoid that. But like, it took me a while to like I said, get to the point where I was like, okay, I'm really, really giving this up. And then it also took me a while to get to the point where I'm like, oh crap, I got to read all the ingredients. If I go to a restaurant, I got to ask questions. You know, I hated doing that, and I felt embarrassed when I'd go to a restaurant and be like, does your steak come with butter on it? I felt like an idiot
Yeah.
asking these questions. But now I've gotten to a point where I'm just like, yeah, no, I want to feel good. I don't want to be crazy or get anxious or depressed. So I'm, everywhere I go, I got to ask questions and I got to read labels. I think as humans, we're all very different as well. So what I did may not make any difference for you, right? Like you might be like, changing my diet did nothing, but I did this other thing that helped. Like you said, some of the medication kind of helped get things back to a more balanced state. So I'm not saying everything should be 100% organic and, change your diet and that's going to fix everything. I think you got to figure out what works for you. Because we're all special snowflakes.
Well, I think that's on the AI point. I mean, I think that's going to be one of the biggest advances in like healthcare. You're going to have all these tests done, and then it's going to completely have. They're already doing this. Like, there's sites that I've been on right now. They're kind of crowdsourced, and there's all these machine learning like algorithms that they're currently using, where you can do like a micro gut biome test, get the raw data from whatever company's doing it, and upload it, and then it will use all this crowdsourced data from like tens of thousands of other people
Hmm.
across the world that have submitted it, and then it'll see the correlations between what you have more or less of a reaction to. It might not be what they're finding is that there are some people that are like celiac, and it's just like, okay, you strictly, you just can't have fucking gluten, period. But a lot of people are on the spectrum where there's
Mm.
certain foods that and it's the accumulation of those foods. The same thing with histamines. Like, I'm not technically allergic to histamines, but it's because of the mast cells that I have an unusually high amount of histamines in my system at all times. So if I eat enough high histamine foods, it kind of puts me over. They call it like a histamine bucket. Like, it kind of overflows, and
Yeah.
then I have issues. So, I now have to see what kind of foods tend to be higher releasers or producer of a histamine for me, which are less. I could still have a high histamine food usually, if I'm not like too close to the line, if you will. So, but I have to do it with a moderation. I have to do it with intent. There's certain medication. There's certain things like DAO, DAO that you can take like 5 minutes before you eat, and that helps like stop the
The
a
response.
yeah. I mean, not entirely, but enough where it makes an impact. So, you know, but I see that happening where it's just like completely individualized healthcare,
Hmm.
and I think that's going to be quite amazing.